Hi, my name is Aaron McCrae, and I'm a Senior Service Delivery Executive here at Ignite. I'm a cybersecurity and risk management leader by trade and a commander in the United States Navy as well. Feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. Today we're going to briefly talk about the CMMC 2.0 scoping guides for both Level 1 and Level 2. Now, prior to a Level 1 CMMC self-assessment, an organization must specify the scope of that assessment. And in order to do so, you must identify assets that either process, store, or transmit FCI, Federal Contract Information. Anything that doesn't is considered out of scope. Now, in-scope assets are assessed against applicable CMMC practices. Additionally, your organization should consider the following areas that could process, store, or transmit FCI, as they could very well be in scope. Your people that touch the data, that process the data, store the data, etc., technology, your facilities, and even your external service providers. Now, as you can imagine, the CMMC scoping guidance for Level 2 is a bit more complex and maps organizational assets into one of 5 categories as identified on the screen. Primarily, assets are based upon controlled and classified information. These are assets that store, process, or transmit CUI. They're part of your scope, they're part of your assessment, and must conform to CMMC practices for Level 2. The same thing can be said for security protection assets. These are the things that provide security to your authorization boundary or your scoped assets. Things could be like firewalls, SIMs, etc. 2 additional types of assets you must consider are contractor risk managed assets and specialized assets. It's important to note they're part of your scope, but they're not assessed according to CMMC practices, but rather assessed against your own policies, practices, processes, procedures, etc. The same additional considerations for Level 1 apply to Level 2 categorized assets, which means that these assets must be captured in an asset inventory, must be in your system security plan, and you must provide a network diagram of your assessment scope or the authorization boundary. The nice thing about the guide is that it provides a way for you to reduce the scope of your assessment, utilizing separation or architectural techniques, both physical and logical. Logical separation utilizes software configuration to prevent data flowing from an authorized asset to one that is not authorized. Some examples are on the screens, like firewalls and VLANs. Now, physical separation is when an authorized and a non-authorized asset are not connected or able to connect either via a wired connection or a wireless one. Examples for physical separation could include gates, locks, badge access, physical guards, etc. Additionally, the guide has given us examples of what to do with certain use cases. For example, let's say you have FCI and CUI within your same boundary, both logically and physically. They would be part of a CMMC assessment scope. In this case, the guide suggests you should pursue a single assessment and certification, and not one for each. However, the certification would be at the highest level of information that is processed, stored, or transmitted. In this case, Level 2, because of the CUI. Also, if you're utilizing an external service provider, like an MSP or MSSP, make sure you have a shared responsibility matrix in place defining what you're responsible for, what they're responsible for, or what you jointly are responsible for. They may also have accreditations in place, like SOC 2 or FedRAMP. You need to validate if those controls, which are similar, would also be compliant with your CMMC 2.0 standards. And then lastly, ensure that the contracts and the SLAs support your organization's compliance requirements for CMMC 2.0. So let's recap, shall we? Level 1 scope is for assets that process, store, or transmit FCI. Level 2 is for assets that fall into one of 5 categories for the protection of CUI, with varying requirements per category. You can reduce your scope by using logical and physical separation techniques, and if you have both FCI and CUI, you can choose a single or dual scope, with a single scope being assessed at the highest level of information processed, stored, or transmitted, in this case CUI. Thank you for tuning in to this short video session. If you have comments or questions about the new CMMC 2.0 scoping guidance, please reach out to us at info@igniteplatform.com.